All right, so happy everybody's here. It's great to see all your beautiful faces. We have amazing women on this program with us from all across the country. And today we're going to be talking about self advocacy. I'm Cynthia Good with Pink, and this is the Pink Power Alliance. As you probably well know, women are far less likely to advocate for ourselves than men are. There's a little bit of data about this, mostly having to do with self promotion. There was a recent study that talked about just how rarely women really step up and say how amazing they are. One piece of data comes from the National Bureau of Economic Research. They found that women are so less likely to self promote. And what they did was they found their performance on a test that the women rated their performance much lower than the men did. Same test, same results. Women said they got 46 of the questions right out of 100. The men said they got 61 questions right. So, I mean, there you can just see. We're going to do a deep dive into this topic today. And the goal is that everyone that's part of this program walk away with tangible tools and tactics that you can use to be a much better self advocate. We've been talking over the course of the last few months about how important having advocates around us is, male advocates, peers, our friends, all that support. But it all really comes down to how well we can advocate for ourselves. We've got some great experts who personify all the best aspects of self advocacy. You're going to meet them now. But I really want to encourage everybody who's participating in this program to speak up. We want to hear you. Be vocal in the chat. We'll unmute your mic later. Tell us who you are in the chat. Tell us where you are. Maybe brag about yourself. Tell us one amazing thing about you. Let's get comfortable with doing that bragging now. And if you have questions, put it in the chat. Amy Sullivan's with me. She's going to be looking for your questions. And if you if you hear something you really like, put it in the chat, because we want to know what you're hearing that you like so that we can all take a look at that. All right, so let's go ahead and introduce you to our speakers. First, I want you to meet an amazing young woman. I followed her over the course of her career for so many years now and seen her rise up and just become more and more powerful. And I was thinking, Quinny Jenkins, she doesn't brag, but I just get the sense of power. Unmute yourself, Quinny. Say hello to everybody. Quinny is the Community Outreach Manager for Southwest Airlines. Welcome. How are you?
Hey, Cynthia. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm happy to talk about this topic, and you're absolutely correct. I don't ever talk about myself. So I think.
And yet I always walk away feeling like I know her strengths. How do you do that?
You know what? I think I just let everybody else kind of watch me move. But, to go with this conversation, it's definitely an issue that I've had in my past, and as a woman and as I'm growing in my career, that I'm starting to just get past these days. So definitely haven't had the easiest time advocating for myself, but I'm better, and I'm anxious to share what I've learned with everyone that's here today. So thank you for having me.
So excited to hear. Okay, fantastic. Also with us, another powerhouse woman executive, Jennifer Dangar. She is the Chief Operating Officer of Jackson Healthcare, a $1.5 billion company. They serve more than 10,000 patients a year. They have more than 10,000 clinician providers and associates. And Jen, thank you so much for being with us today. How are you doing with self-advocacy in the middle of COVID? Is it a little harder?
Yeah, so great to be here, first of all. I love the purpose of these conversations, and I think we all need to be one another's allies and advocates in this. And sure, during COVID, it's become even more challenging and difficult. And I think that we all have to think super hard about the paradigm of what's the right balance and how do you achieve all of these things that you need to achieve remotely, and then how do you sort of amplify those and help people know what you're doing and what success looks like in others. So it's a little bit different in a COVID world, but I do think that the reality of us moving back into the hybrid world soon will actually be helpful and useful, right? But you have to have those tools of how do you kind of highlight accomplishments and generally of others, because as your team rises, the reflection is on you. And to Quinny's point, I don't spend a lot of time saying me, me, me. I'm always deflecting, the success to others. But I think that's the sign of a true leader, is
Wow.
one who can deflect that success.
Okay, interesting. I want to hear more about that because there's been a lot of talk, and we're going to sort of take a litmus test of the group that we have with us today. Just that we're pretty good at advocating for others, but we neglect to advocate for ourselves. So I think that deserves some more discussion. Want to introduce you to our next thought leader. She is amazing. Please meet Chloe Taylor Brown. Hey, Chloe, how are you? She's unmuting herself now, but I can tell you that Chloe is an amazing executive coach to a lot of top women business leaders. Her company is Chloe Taylor Brown Enterprises. And Chloe, how are you doing on emerging from COVID in terms of your self-advocacy? I think that she's still on mute. I know she's in a
We might have lost her because she said I got kicked off. I still see her on here, but she hasn't popped back
Okay.
in. So let's circle back to her.
Okay, thanks, Amy. We will circle back, then introduce you to our final expert today, who is another amazing woman. She is here in Los Angeles. I happen to be in LA, and Amy is as well. And so is our next guest expert. Her name is Valerie Chan. She is the CEO of Platform. And self-advocacy may have literally saved Valerie's life. She was in a near-death collision. And Valerie, I don't remember, but I think even somebody else in the car, Pat, died. And she is that true?
No.
Okay. Rumors. But I know self-advocacy has helped her make a comeback personally and in terms of her business. And it's not been easy. Valerie, tell us a little bit about that and what happened.
Sure. About 7 years ago, I actually was in pretty severe car accident. My car was totaled. I got sideswiped on the freeway in rush hour traffic, and my car ricocheted across the freeway. And I was hit from all angles, the front, the back, on both sides. And when my car finally stopped, I was able to walk out of the backseat window to what I thought was unscathed. But the reality is that I had severe concussion that actually left me impaired for almost 2 years. And I also had difficulty walking. So over the course of 2 years, I learned how to walk again and talk again and do many of the things that I used to. So it was definitely a journey, and with physical therapists, speech therapists, occupational therapists, and kind of the list goes on. So
yeah, and we're talking today about self-advocacy in the workplace, but gosh, something even more crucial, I think, is when it comes to your health. If we, right, Valerie? Don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where are we if we can't advocate for ourselves, right?
Exactly. And I think as a CEO, leading a team during that time, it was difficult in the sense of, I own a communications agency, and we advocate for clients in difficult, in a challenging world. We work with legal and regulatory clients. So being able to advocate and coach the team and make sure that we rise with our clients was super important. So I had to learn a different way of communicating with people.
And so is it, when you're ill, you're feeling, I would be very introverted and maybe a little afraid. So is it really, I want to ask this to our experts, really about just taking a deep breath and doing what you need to do? Jennifer? And you guys and our speakers, go ahead and keep yourselves unmuted. We'll keep everybody else muted for now, but I really want our expert speakers just to be unmuted, and please jump in at any time.
Yeah, I think you do have to be bold, and to the point that I was making earlier, and Cynthia, there's advocating for your team, but that's really publicly doing that in the right context. Behind closed doors with the people that are going to affect your life, your livelihood, all that, that's the time when you roll all of that success up and then you take credit for it.
Okay, so you want to highlight others when you're in group settings, but when you're behind closed doors, you want to say, look.
Yeah,
I did.
You still want to talk about the team. Like, in your one-on-ones, you're still talking about the success of the team, but you're the architect of that success. And there's
I want to know from you, like, how do you say it? Like, I want the verbiage, but before we do that, I want to go ahead and introduce Chloe Taylor Brown. Chloe, we want to hear you.
Oh, hi there. I'm here. I'm sorry I've been kicked out. I'm in a hotel on vacation. I'm doing the best I can. But anyway, I'm so excited to be here. And so what was your question, Cynthia, just about you?
I know Chloe works with so many senior level women. Are you seeing that this continues to be a big issue, even for some of the very successful women that you work with? What are you seeing out there? And then
I
really
do
wanna
see,
find-
yes, I do see that, and so it's kind of like a false humility. We all need to talk about ourselves because we can't expect people to Google us and know who we are and say every time we show up and we say who we are, it's not bragging, but it is a little bit because it's good to brag on yourself. And I actually teach people how to do it.
And
And
we're going to
there's
find
no
out
shame
today
in it.
how to
Men
do
do it
it.
all
Yeah, and Chloe's got a little exercise.
the time. Excuse me.
We're going to all figure
Oh,
out how to
yes.
do it. Chloe's got an exercise for us today. But first, let's go ahead and test the waters because I want us to hear from everybody. If you're participating today on this call, we've got some poll questions to ask you. I want everybody to participate. Obviously, it's unanimous. It's well, we want it to be unanimous, and it is anonymous. So, Amy, go ahead and pop up the first poll question, and there you can see. Just click whatever works with you and speaks to your situation. How able are you to speak up for yourself and the things that are important to you? Are you a fantastic self-advocate? Most of the time, half of the time, most of the time, I'm not a good advocate for myself, or are you just a terrible self-advocate? And then submit those answers, and Amy is going to come back and in real time tell us what the
We're gonna give it about, 5 more seconds. We almost have everybody voted. We have 75% of the votes in.
Yeah, and then we'll go back to Chloe because I want to know what you think of this. Let's see how the vote panned out. I know it's not taking everybody much time to answer those questions because they're pretty familiar. Do you have that, Amy?
Yep, I'm gonna end it. I'm gonna share. Okay, here we go. So it
Okay.
looks like
Well, that's
our yeah, it looks like 38% are most of the time are good advocates. I think that's a positive thing. Second, we have about half the time. And then thirdly, most of the time. So
okay. So we've got 23% still. 23% of the people who are part of this program say most of the time I am not a good advocate for myself. Does this surprise you guys? These statistics, I like hearing 38% are good. We've got 5% who are really fantastic, 8% who are really terrible. That's interesting. What do you make of this, Chloe?
I think it's about average, about, a general saying that because we don't really know how to advocate for ourselves and we think it's bragging, and it is bragging, but not in a braggadocious way. We want to be able to hold our position in who we are, and because we can deliver what we promise. And as executives, we think that we're always supposed to be building up our team, and that is absolutely true, but we've got to build up ourselves too. And in doing that, we want to be able to say exactly what we can do, what we can deliver, and say it boldly and be happy about it and smile about it. You don't have to have a mean face when you're saying it and you're talking about yourself. Just hold your position as yourself and your leader.
All right, that's really interesting, Jen. In terms of what she just said, it's where is that balance? And let's go to Quinny. Actually, is this really the crux of the issue, Quinny? Is that we don't know maybe where that line is between advocating for others on the team and then how do we turn the conversation to focus on ourselves? Because I hear Chloe saying one thing and Jennifer's saying one thing, and I think we all agree.
I think that as leaders, all of us on this panel, we lead teams. And I think that sometimes we get caught up in thinking that to be an outstanding leader, we need to talk about our teams all the time, always, and kind of put ourselves second. And that's not necessarily the case. I love talking about my team. I love sharing up all of the outstanding accomplishments. But how can my leadership and my executive team know all the amazing things that I have going on if I don't talk about myself as well? So I think there's a fine line between advocating for your team and then just completely forgetting about yourself. My leaders know exactly what my team's doing. I'm happy to talk about it. They make me so proud. But at the same time, sometimes when it comes down to myself, I feel like, well, I'm their leader. I'm leading them. My executives know what I'm doing. So let me just make sure that I keep propping up and letting the light shine on the people that report to me.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Quinny. I know Quinny's point is put yourself first, right? It's like the oxygen mask on an airplane. Let's go to Valerie Chan. What do you make of what we're hearing and also those results?
I'm actually not surprised by that. It's kind of all over the map, but at the same time, women just in general, and as an Asian American woman, culturally, it's just hard to swim against the traditional realm of actually speaking up for yourself. And so to go against conventional expectations of how we should be speaking is a little bit hard. And as a leader, we're kind of conditioned to talk about our teams. I definitely agree with Quinny on that. And I'm proud, and this is, I'm giving my experience and the experiences that I've seen with other women leaders. When we talk about our teams, it's a function and a product of our leadership, which actually gives us strength in knowing that we're advocating not just for others, but for ourselves as well. And so being able to communicate the well-roundedness of both of those things is really important in the dialogue that we have with others.
So what you're saying is, and let's go back to Jen and see if I've got this right. Jen, I know you'll be more articulate on this. So essentially what you're saying though, Valerie, is you're demonstrating your strengths by showing the power of your team. You're leading them, and that's a leadership skill. Is that how you're viewing it, Jennifer?
Yeah, and then I think it's important to connect the dots and know your audience, right? So I think there's a lot of talking about your team, and then at the time when it's right for you to take credit for that, it's a smaller audience, it's at a time when it's important, and it doesn't always have to be you either. This is the time when you build allies. So for example, my team does all these great things and they are amazing and awesome and they, are fantastic. And so I've been talking about that throughout. Let's just call it a QB, a quarterly review or something. And then, you can kind of go back to say, hey, my team did all these great things. So I would say my accomplishments for this quarter are, I increased this, I maximized talent this way, I did, and then it becomes an I statement, but you're taking credit for all of that, so it's kind of combining what Chloe and Quinny are both saying. You're taking credit for it, but with the right audience. And I also think a critical piece with that, so that would be your direct manager or leader or boss, whomever, and that you're speaking to them in their language. Is it metrics? Is it, performance? What are the things that matter to that person with whom you're discussing it that has, influence over your possibilities, right? And do you get a board member? Do you have lunch with a board member and say, take credit? And these are all the things that I've done. You find other ways that message gets through to those people that it needs to get through to without it only being you.
I love that. Okay. So, now we're on a roll. I love that you gave us the actual verbiage. By the way, I'm recording all this and writing this down. We are recording, right? And yes, we are. So don't worry about memorizing all this because we're going to do some follow-up with you. But I love what Jennifer said about how have lunch with a board member and do this. What are some other ways, like specifically how, now that we know what we need to say, how do we get this across? In what circumstances? What do we need to do to create that environment where we can self-advocate? Chloe?
Well, I think we always have an environment to self-advocate, the way that we show up, the way that we speak, the way that we dress, who we're having our circles, who we're mentoring. We leave little breadcrumbs by how we show up and how we hold our position. And so one of the things that I like most of all is that we have to really value ourselves and know our own self-worth. That's our whole self-efficacy. And we start there. And then I say that we have to be very perceptive. In any moment, there's an opportunity to elevate ourselves and also the people around us. We don't have to leave anyone out. But if we don't have someone validating us, speaking on our behalf, it is our responsibility and our own responsibility to advocate for ourselves in every opportunity. And as I said, it's verbal and also nonverbal. And you never miss an opportunity just by being your authentic self and knowing who you are and holding that position.
All right, we're going to go back more specifically because I'm excited about the exercise we're going to do with Chloe. Valerie, and Quinny strikes me as that, right? So we talked about assessing your environment, having that emotional intelligence so you read your environment. Are you behind closed doors with a board director or are you in front of everybody? And so really understand and how your view, taking that feedback. And then Chloe, you also talked about self-assessment, understanding and valuing yourself. What is your self-worth? And Valerie, you talk a lot about that. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, I actually wanted to take a step back, and I think advocacy starts with first knowing yourself and knowing what your strengths are, your weaknesses are, taking an inventory not of just your accomplishments, but your strengths, your weaknesses, what you want within the organization, your career path, and your vision for yourself in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, so that you could come up with a game plan for yourself. So and actually create a community that's able to advocate for you, as well as you being able to advocate for yourself to actually step into that vision. And that, I think, is the first important lesson before we do the the self-assessment, before we actually go and, okay, I'm in this environment, let's look around, let's assess this, let's speak the language, right?
Right. So let's go back to the group then, because I think these are all great points. And let's see where everybody is when we're talking about this. What areas do you have greatest difficulty with when it comes to self-advocacy? Is it knowing what you want or need? Valerie just talked about having a 5 to 10 year plan. You got to know what you want, right, before you can ask for it at the highest level, and also just very specifically. Is it taking initiative to make the ask what you want and need? Is it making your needs clearly understood? Is it asking for help? And is it doing it in a positive way? So, check the ones that are really maybe the three that are most prominent for you. I think that's and sometimes I think it's difficult to make our needs clearly understood, because sometimes I feel like maybe we're too strategic. What do you think about that, Chloe?
I think sometimes we are, but as I was going back and thinking about what do I really, really want? And what is it that I do not want? We have to know what we don't want to get that out of the way, because when we know what we want, there's so many things coming at us for our time. When you know what you want, you can hold your position in that. You can clearly say, oh, darling, that sounds so good, but that's just not for me. Or you can clearly say, no, thank you. Because we can't do everything. When you know who you are and what you want, you can clearly make a decision and hold that position.
Yeah, good point. Okay, well, we're going to pop the results up on the screen, I think.
Yep, here we go.
Okay, making your needs clearly understood was the biggest issue with 44%. I think that's really interesting. Making your needs clearly understood. Leave those statistics up, Amy, but someone just wanted to speak to this. One of our experts just jumped in.
That was me. Yes. So,
okay.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Chloe said, I completely agree. And as I was thinking through this topic, I was thinking about how women, we have to use our voice, okay? Like Chloe said earlier, we always have the moment and the time and an opportunity to advocate for ourselves, whether we're with our teams or we're with our leadership team. But in addition to that, we need to feel comfortable pushing back. We don't have to accept the first offer that's given to us. We don't have to accept the job that's given to us. We need to be more comfortable, as Chloe said, saying, you know what, thank you for that, but no thanks, that's not a good fit for me. But actually what is a good fit for me is A, B, C, D, and E. So as women, I just want us to just own that and feel okay with saying, you know what, that's not a good fit for me. That's not what I expected, but here is what I want.
Okay, good point. Thanks so much, Quinny. And I think we really want to drill down most deeply into making our needs clearly understood. Most of us had the biggest issue with that 44%, 41% said taking the initiative, and then just 8% had difficulty asking in a positive way. So that's great. So what about that? What about taking the initiative and making our needs clearly known, articulating them clearly? What are we doing wrong, Jen? How do we make our needs more clearly understood?
I think a big part of that is understanding them yourself, right? And as women, we tend to put ourselves last. And that's a huge part of the problem, right? We're so busy taking care of everybody else, starting with our team, our families, our kids, our dogs, our parents, our homes, the list goes on and on and on. So we're always last. So I think one effective way to think about what's really important to you is to journal. And even if it's 5 minutes a day, no matter what it is, find a good, a Rocket Book or an app or a piece of paper, whatever works for you. And you'll start to recognize the themes. Once you start to journal a little bit, you go back and you reflect, okay, what keeps recurring here? Oh gosh, I'm not getting X, or I'm not getting enough Y, or I need more of this. And we're all in different seasons, right? And so you've got to figure out, I think it is back to, I think Chloe said this, you've got to have a little bit of a roadmap for yourself. So right now, your season might be, I need comp. I'm at a place and a position in my life where comp is king, or I need a title to be able to jump, or I need different experiences. Whatever it is, figure that out and prioritize that. And then know that the next time you go back to the well, it's going to be another one of those dimensions.
Oh my God, I love that. That's brilliant. I hope you guys are all, writing that in the chat, the things that you're hearing, because that's really, really helpful. Let's go ahead, just to your point, and I think my takeaway is we need to talk about the team and everybody else's strengths, but part of that is to demonstrate our own assets. But let's go ahead and go to that poll, Amy, which asks, are you better advocating for yourself or others? I think we know the answer, but it just out of curiosity, I'm just a little curious. Let's see what everybody says. And then I want to go back to the core of this, which is point number one that, Chloe, everybody has said, it's unanimous. Chloe talked, first and foremost, we need to value ourselves. We need to have that self-worth. We need to get really comfortable with self-assessment. What are our strengths? Chloe, talk a little bit about what you want everybody to do in the breakout session. So what are you looking for in this breakout session? Give us this challenge, because this isn't going to be easy. And pop up those results, Amy, just when you get them so we can take a peek.
Okay, what I want everyone to do is to just think about yourself in a very, very positive, high level way and brag on yourself for 30 seconds. And we're not talking about our children. We're not talking about our husbands or anything like that. We're talking about ourselves. So Cynthia, if you like for me to
well, I think what we'll do, this is going to be really easy. You just saw the proof. We're backing up why we're doing this. 87% of us are better advocating for others. So we're going to take Chloe's challenge. This is going to be maybe a little uncomfortable for like 87% of us, but we're going to go into a breakout. Amy is going to put everybody in breakout rooms. She's going to stop the recording now. Before you get into your breakout room, I want to challenge everybody. Get up. Let's see. All right. Looks like everybody's coming back to the main session now. Hi, everybody. Would love to know how that experience was for you. Are there any facilitators or women in certain groups who would love to share? Go ahead and unmute yourself now and tell us what that experience was like. Genevieve, what was your group talking about?
We were three of us piped up right away, and it was actually exciting and fun. It really was. It was fun. It was fun because I think we knew we were in a safe place where people weren't going to roll their eyes and say, "Oh, because we were given permission, and we all had something to share. And I think that camaraderie was really key.
Thank you so much, Genevieve. And Genevieve is one of our featured coaches. And for the new members of the Pink Power Alliance, part of what you get is a chance to have a coaching session with one of our amazing coaches. Adele, she's another one of our featured coaches. Are you with us right now? And what was the experience in your group? Was everybody really comfortable there as well?
We had an awesome time. I mean, the energy, and I could see everyone starting to smile. And with every subsequent share, there was even more coming out. It was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it. I think everyone in the group walked away with a lovely smile of confidence.
Oh,
good
beautiful.
exercise.
Thanks, Adele. Valerie, were you in a breakout group, and what happened there? And
I was 7 women in the group. It was actually a really good experience. And what I found fascinating is that some women had a difficult time actually talking about some of their accomplishments, and these are accomplished women. And we actually talked about what our weaknesses were, which I thought was really interesting as well. So yeah, I know.
Interesting though. I mean, the assignment was to talk about our strength. We had one woman, oh my gosh, wonderful, Amy, who talked about just being more outspoken and that she overcame that. But I'm surprised people were talking about their weaknesses.
Yeah, it was definitely an eye-opening experience, but I actually thought it was really great because just in general, going back to the poll that we had earlier, it kind of tells you, we're better at advocating for others versus ourselves. So being able to speak up for ourselves was really, for some women, a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, I want to hear from some of the other breakout groups. If you haven't spoken yet, I'd love to hear from you. But I do want to mention what Annette Tarabasso had said. Annette is a former partner of Deloitte, and she was talking about some data that shows that women are 25% more likely than men to have their video off. And I'm not reprimanding anybody, but I mean, this program is to help you gain visibility. And we still have a lot of people who are not on camera. And so I really want to encourage everybody to show up, even if you're in charge of other people. Good, I'm seeing you, Lisa. We want to see you guys. We want to see your faces. We want you to step up and show up and speak. And this is the opportunity to do it if there were ever a place to do it. And I don't care if you're in your sweats, but this is the point, right? We still got a lot of folks who are not on camera. Anybody else want to share what happened in their breakout?
Hey, Cynthia, it's Annette. That is true, that data, and I just wanted people to be aware of it, but I also want people to realize that they should be aware that that is the data from the firm. And then, but there are reasons why some people may not be on video, and they may be very valid, but just recognize on average, if we're showing up for a work, video or Zoom, that on average, and look at men have their video on 25% more than the women.
I think that's really important. Thanks for sharing that. And I'd love a source on that when you get a chance. But okay, well, let's hear from some more folks from your breakout rooms. But I also want to open it up to questions now. We've heard a lot, we've done a lot. What questions do you have for our experts? One of my questions is, how do you talk about your strengths in a way that doesn't feel bragging, like I did this, this, and this? I mean, nobody wants to hear that. Chloe, you got any thoughts on that? And then let's go to our two executives to see what their experience has been.
Well, again, you just say, for instance, I've written 4 books, and that's just a fact. And I've been able to help women to reach their highest levels. It's not what I say. The proof is always in the pudding of what you're able to do for other people. And so you're sharing and you're telling, you're holding your position. It should not be offensive for us to be able to share what we're good at and what we like, and to feel good about it. And for those who don't feel good about us sharing who we are, that's not our problem. I love what, I think it was I can't say her name, Genevieve?
Yes, Genevieve.
You said that so we were given permission. We don't need permission. We can give ourselves permission. When I was 24 years, yesterday was my birthday.
Happy birthday, Chloe.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. My phone was ringing. So I realized that when I was 24, there was something missing. And I went to a psychologist. He said, you don't need anyone to give you permission to be your best. You just show up to be your best. And I went out that day and I bought several self-help books. The one that stuck with me and got me to Milan and Paris to be a model in my first career was The Magic of Thinking Big. We have to think bigger about ourselves. We are amazing, but no one is gonna know it if we don't know it.
Right. Okay, well, let's go. I want to go to Jennifer Dangar. How do you brag about yourself without it not coming off like that? Because you do that, Jennifer, and I want to know how you do it.
Well, I think you do have to give yourself permission, and there are ways to frame things and say things that just sound more gentle and delicate than just awesome. I start with, what I'm so proud of? When you're proud of something, it just sounds, not as braggadocious to me, right? Hey, and I'm just listening to some of the women and stealing from the way they're framing and talking about it as well. But I'm really proud of the fact that I have spoken at the White House. That was my example. Or I'm really, when you have these conversations, there's the right time and place and tenor for it. And so I think, though, finding those phrases and those keywords and listening to those cues from others, and what makes you interesting and how do you talk about that. But, I think those are important things.
I love that, Jennifer, and I want to go back to you in a minute. If you can think of some more specific thing, like that really helps me to go in and say, you know what I'm most proud of. If you can tell us a couple more of those, I want to hear it. But first, I want to go back to Quinny. Quinny, how did you overcome some of this fear as a young professional woman? Because I've watched you in your trajectory. Share with us how that happened.
Yeah, most certainly. So a lot of folks mentioned earlier kind of having someone to advocate for you. And so I've been really lucky and very blessed to have amazing leaders at Southwest Airlines. And they would hear about things that I was doing, like out in the community. I was winning awards and being invited to speak places, and I wouldn't tell a soul. Like I would go into my one-on-one and I wouldn't tell my leader. Again, it would just be all about my team. And she'd say, well, tell me about, such and such. I heard you doing. And I'm like, well, I didn't really want to say anything. And I've had amazing female leaders. And I remember one in particular was like, if you don't talk about it, none of us will ever know. We will never know all the amazing things that are happening for you and the things that you're doing if you never talk about it. So I find that for me, because I struggle. Like Chloe said, I feel like I'm bragging. So I struggle, but what I found to work for me is that I try to share my wins in each of my weekly meetings with my leader. I feel like doing it on a weekly basis feels better for me than all at once. Like, this is what I've done, all at one time. So every week I try to share my wins and all the things that I've accomplished, because it feels less like, even though Chloe said what we're doing is a fact, it's not a brag, but it feels less like bragging to me if I can just kind of take it a little slower and just kind of like spoon feed all the amazing things that are happening for me in my career.
I love it. Anybody else have any questions or comments about that?
I'm going to add something really tactical, Cynthia, to your request. When I was at the Weather Channel, I managed all of our senior executive meetings. I was the head of strategy. And Quinny, to steal from you, we started every single meeting going around with, what is the thing you're most proud of personally and professionally this week?
Wow.
And then you do it every week, and you give people permission to talk about that, and I stole it from somebody else. I can't remember exactly which leader it was. I don't know if it was Dorsey or who it was, but from someone. And you had to think about it, and then you articulated it, and it was just out there then. And I found that to be, and you get to know your colleagues a little bit better. We were all located in different, far-flung places. So it was really interesting to hear people talk about the personal and professional accomplishments.
All right, well, some of the questions are coming in, and Amy, you can jump in and ask some of the questions. I see one here. Now I lost it. Okay, ideas on how we can better discover what our strengths and wins are. How can we discover what they are? And Valerie, let's go to you, because I know you've got an answer to that.
I do, actually. I was going to bring it up earlier, but one of the tricks of the trade that I learned early on is take a notebook next to your bedside and ask yourself one question every single day and see what your subconscious brings up. And you will be amazed, because you're in a dream state during the 8 hours or 6 to 8 hours that you may sleep. And then you wake up and things will start coming to you. So maybe your first question is, what are my strengths, right? And your subconscious will speak to you, and you start journaling, and then maybe you do it for 5 days or 10 days or 20 days. You'll start seeing where your strengths are, and you'll start understanding what that is. Another tip would be actually taking a Post-it note and putting it on your refrigerator, and every win, just start noting it down, and maybe you put that on your refrigerator and your mirror, and you'll start seeing little positive affirmations throughout your house as you collect more and more of those. But those are
love it. Okay, great suggestions. Anybody else want to ask a question or make a comment who we have not heard from today?
Sure, Cynthia, it's Annette again. I would just say ask others, because others may see you differently than you see yourself. And I think others tend to often see you more positively than you see yourself. So ask others. And there are also, I'm sure many of you heard about it. There was a book called Strength Finders that outlines your strengths based on, answers that you just, provide to their survey and questions, and you get your strengths and how to use them. It doesn't lead to bragging, what to brag about, but you can uncover your strengths. And keep a bragging folder, as someone suggested, accomplishments, and then
Do
go
you
back
have
and
one
listen.
of those?
I do.
You do?
And
Oh
I
my
have a thank you folder too for all the thank yous people have.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
So
Okay,
anyways, the purpose of that is also not really to brag, but like when you're having a bad day, pull those out, right? And it kind of lifts you up a little bit. But then one thing I just wanted to close with is many people have mentioned this was safe to do today because we gave permission, it was the instructions. But I think as we go out and help other women, on a daily basis, regular basis, give them permission. When you see, hey, Cynthia, what did you do today? I'm sure you've done something great in the past.
Yeah, I love that suggestion. And even to start the meetings, to go around the room and see what everybody's biggest win was. I'm going to begin to wrap up because we're running short on time. We could definitely have this conversation for maybe another 5 hours. And I want to hear from more of you, and we will as time goes on. Quinny had some great takeaways. One thing, be prepared, have your facts in front of you of what you did when you go in to make your ask. She also said, don't be afraid. You're either going to get a yes or a no. If it's no, find out why, and then you can fix it for next time. Let's go ahead and pop up some of the solutions that we have been thinking about. Write down what you want. We talked about that, some great ways to do it. Find out what you're worth. We didn't talk about that. There are lots of online resources, and you can talk with others, your peers too, to find out what you're worth. Assess yourself. We talked about that, the importance of taking a look and understanding your own worth and having that confidence and seeing your value and your strengths and assessing your environment, getting that feedback, reading the room. And then 5, go ahead and step up and have the courage to have the conversation. So just to recap a little bit, when we started today, 38% of you said half the time you were not a good advocate. 23% said most of the time you were not a good advocate. Let's take a look at how everybody is feeling now. And I believe that Amy's got another poll to pop up on the screen. Hopefully you're more able to make your needs known now. We talked about 44% had a hard time with that. 41% have difficulty making the ask. So go ahead now. How do you feel about your ability to advocate for yourself? Are you better able to than when we started today? Yes. Are you somewhat better able to, or nope, still can't?
I'm enjoying watching these results come in. We're almost there, 67%.
So, okay, so let us know what the results are when they finally come in, Amy. In the meantime, I want to remind everybody, we got some great resources. We're going to put them in the chat for you, but don't worry about it because we're going to do a recap and I'll send you our experts that provide great resources. And to those of you speakers today, and Annette, you two who haven't given us resources, send them when you can. A little heads up about what's next. The Peak Power Alliance Zoominar at this time next month, we'll be talking about well-being, so crucial for women, especially in the pandemic. You'll want to come to that. And Amy, go ahead and pop up the results and then send everybody. Okay, so 57% say they're much better able to advocate for themselves than when they started. 39% somewhat, 4% still nope. Maybe when we send the recap, you'll be better about it. We'll see, hopefully, yes. And to our experts, are you surprised by these results?
I'm not surprised, but I feel that if we were to really be able to assess our excellence, it's all about our excellence, and there are levels of excellence. So no matter what, we have to know that we are very excellent at the highest level, and we have to step into it. And there are ways to know how to do that. So thank you,
All right,
Cynthia.
well, thanks so much, Chloe. That's a great little pep talk. And I'll give everybody, you guys, your access to your information too, Chloe, so you can talk more with people. And Amy, go ahead and pop up on the screen what's coming up next so they can see the calendar. Oh, and give everybody the URL. If you are not an official member of the Peak Power Alliance, we'd love to invite you to join. And Amy's going to send you a link for that, and we'll send it again later this week. And in our recap, we'll be featuring everybody in the recap that comes out on the 17th of every month, the free newsletter that hopefully you're receiving, and save the date too for the upcoming Pink Empowerment event, the 17th annual, finally in person too. You'll be able to watch it as well.
Mhm.
It's on October 18th, and we'll get you the link for that too. All right, with that, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up because we've got 1 minute left, but we want to invite you to stick around after we stop the recording for informal networking just for our group. So thanks again to all of our amazing speakers. Thank you for your time. Thanks everybody for being here, and we'll see you next month. Mwah. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks.